Hi everyone, this is your girl Nikita, and welcome to the Perfectly Powerful You podcast. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Perfectly Powerful You podcast. I'm your host Nikita, and we have a very special guest today. We have Ivy Kinvig with me.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
I love this.
I love this too. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
This is great. I'm excited.
I'm really glad you're excited. How are you today, by the way?
Well, today has been a very interesting day, but I think I'm pretty good. Pretty fantastic.
Yes.
I was excited for this, a little bit nervous.
Yes. Well, yeah, totally. I mean, we're doing something new. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic anyways, because we're helping you, we're helping me, and we're talking all about burnout.
It's beautiful, right?
Yes.
This thing that happens to us once in a while.
Like we kind of said burnout was only for a select few individuals.
Yeah.
And so to just start things off, how would you describe burnout?
Well, okay, so this is the fun part, because burnout's definition came around in the early 70s, and it was researched heavily by this lady named Christina Maslach. She's fun. So she came up with this beautiful definition, and over the course of time, that definition has almost stood completely true. And she's still doing research on burnout. She's oh
wow,
she's the guru. It's amazing. So
what's her name?
Christina Maslach.
Christina, thank you, Christina.
Yeah, she's podcast. She's on Netflix too, and she has her own podcast. We've had an ongoing conversation about what I've been working on as well. But when you're looking at burnout, what they're often saying is that there's three areas. So it's an emotional exhaustion, which we all know quite well. We often think that burnout is just exhausted. I'm exhausted. My mind's exhausted. My body's exhausted. I'm exhausted. But so then there's that emotional exhaustion, and we know that. And then there's depersonalization, where you've started to remove yourself from it. You no longer feel like you're part of the group in your work environment or your life. And then comes this lack of personal accomplishment, where you don't actually feel like you're good enough. Oh. Yeah. So
those are some deep layers.
They are, but it's funny if you ever think back onto a memory that was where you felt burnt out, let's use the word burnout. You can, if you think back on those moments, you can see yourself, and you can see how you're removing yourself. Your body was exhausted. You didn't feel good enough. And if you really started to unpack it, you can see what area you fell into most. And I know that I get to speak from experience, because my research on burnout came from starting my master's and deciding that I wanted to look at what was going on for myself and do a self-study. And I had to pivot at one point because I was working in a different area. And then all of a sudden I was forced to ask myself, what is my intense moral purpose right now? What am I doing? What am I going to supply back to my educational community that I feel is relevant to myself, relevant to the world right now, and what's happening? So COVID had just happened. Everything's changing in my job. Things are moving around. And then all of a sudden I realized that I was actually in that state. And I didn't even I didn't realize it. I just felt emotionally exhausted, tired all the time. Wasn't sure what I was, did I eat enough? Did I sleep enough? Everything's kind of out of sorts. And then when I started to do the research, it was wow, I have pushed myself away and removed myself from the surroundings that I was in. I'm still going to work. I'm still doing my job, but I have really stepped back and found myself removing myself. And I am exhausted. I'm barely making it to the end of the day. And I feel like I'm not good enough all the time. And so it was that big aha moment. And I think many people, when they look at those hard moments in their life, can actually say, oh my goodness, there's this aspect of me that was burnt right out and I didn't even know it. And if I did, maybe something would have looked different. So mine was that deep personalization,
but it seems like it touched on a lot of different ones anyways.
Because
for myself, I would like to say not everyone experiences burnout, because maybe there are some people who just they
can maintain the life that they need to do it all, right?
You got it. Able to develop that. But for myself, I've definitely experienced burnout. And I think that specifically in Ucluelet, because we are a very tourist town, that during the off season, that there's a lot of slow pace. We're kind of just like, we're close knit. We just kind of trickle away. But then when the summer hits, everyone knows that it's time to get
You
ready.
can feel the energy.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of ramping up
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
And there's also this mentality that I've been learning to shift my thoughts away from, that people are understaffed, that it's going to be like really like hellish busy,
Yeah.
and that you're going to be working like crazy hours nonstop all the time. And that seems to be a really prominent energy. And I know a lot of people, you can start feeling like people are getting short with each
Yep.
other.
Yep.
You can hear like even more honking outside. When you're going in, like people, like the energy, people are really excited in the beginning, and then midway through the summer and towards the end, people
You
are
can see them.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're removing themselves. They really are.
And
They are taking a mental
mentally
break. Yep.
remove themselves,
Yep.
because it can feel like a lot. But I find that for myself, it became a lot of emotional like burnout as well, where I'm like, wow, I really don't feel like I have the energy. But yeah, no, actually I would feel like when you start to relate that kind of stuff, that there would be different aspects that touch on a lot of different
Yep.
things. And then for myself, it's as soon as I don't want to go to work, because I love baking. It's what I do. It's
Yep.
my passion. But as soon as I feel like I start to resent it, as soon as I feel like, yeah, there's too much to do and not enough time to do it, when I don't want to
Did I
be
do it
there,
good enough?
did I do it good enough?
Yep.
And I start, yeah, like there's a part of me, it's like, I just want to be somewhere else right now. And that's when I know that there has to be boundaries.
Yeah.
But in
Very much
terms
so.
of being able to assess that for people, in terms of like the emotion, the just wanting to remove yourself, the not feeling like you're good enough, where do you find people? Because I love setting boundaries.
I'm learning about this. I'm not, so I
Yeah.
like this.
No, like how do you find, either with yourself or with others,
Yeah.
when they're experiencing these different kinds of facets of what we classify as burnout?
Right.
Where would people start to like set those boundaries, or be able to navigate burnout in a way where they're not feeling like they need to like, maybe it's taking space, maybe it's taking vacation, but maybe if that's not an option for people, how can they navigate that, in your opinion, while also being able to feel like they're doing enough for themselves?
Okay, so this is such a big question. Such a big,
It is. Unpack it however you love.
Unpack it. Okay, so if we're looking at burnout, it's typically something. It's caused by some sort of stress that's happened over and over and over again. Whether it's a person, whether it's a job, whether it's the stress of not sleeping, but the stress builds up, and there's this idea that you can deal with those stresses, right? Go to sleep, get an extra hour,
Sure.
right? Figure out how to communicate with your boss because that's causing a problem.
Totally.
Right? Okay, we can solve that stress. We can fix that stress. But that doesn't fix what stress does to our body.
Totally.
Because stress actually takes a physiological presence in us. It is in
Huge.
us.
It is.
So
Yeah.
when you think about stress, and then, okay, so we know it's in us. If we don't do something to reverse that, it just essentially packs itself on top of each other.
Compounding.
So then the one stress this year that you're experiencing just can disrupt the whole body because you haven't dealt with the stresses of yesterday or last year or last month. So eventually that stress just builds to the point where it's over, right? So the number one way to release stress from your body is 30 minutes of physical activity. Number one. And like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to go for a run. If a bear's chasing me, I will. Don't get me wrong. Right.
Yeah.
But that's not my thing. But then, okay, so physical activity, 30 minutes of physical activity. There's a couple of things I do on a regular basis that are 30 minutes of physical activity.
Yeah.
I mow the lawn. I dance in the kitchen all the time.
I love
Crank the
dancing.
tunes, dance, like dance it out. Wouldn't that be lovely if you could go to your doctor? Hey, I got a problem. And they say, dance it out.
Yeah.
I love it. Crank the tunes. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes, I go for a walk after dinner. It doesn't mean that you have to go and like power lift at the gym or run on a treadmill.
Yeah.
But you have to physically get it out.
That's really help though, because I know whenever I'm like having a really stressful day or I'm
Yeah.
feeling really zonked, I love the gym. It has
Mm.
become my happy place.
See, so it's working for you.
It does. And I've been going to the gym for many, many years.
Yep.
And I've been finding that even just a little bit, or even a walk, like when I'm feeling like I'm really in my head and there's a lot of stuff that is I'm choosing to ruminate or stress over
Yep.
or think about in a particular way. The one thing that I tell myself is, Nikki, you just need to get out.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I know they say like nature is
You
really
you
good for
betcha.
that.
Yeah.
So like you can do two for one. You can go out in nature and
Go
go for
for a
a
run
walk.
in nature.
Yes,
Love it. I'm in.
because there's something that like it's
Yeah.
like you just take yourself out of your head,
Mhm.
and then you stop perpetuating the
Mhm.
same pattern of thought that maybe you were once doing, and then you're able to yeah, help release that. I love the idea that you can exercise your way out of stress
Why not?
and dance your way out of stress.
Why not? There's
Yeah,
so many other things like mow the lawn.
true.
You get
I'd
rid of your
rather not.
stress, right? See, okay, so you want to go to the gym, I'll mow the lawn,
Yeah,
right?
you
Lawn
can mow
care.
my lawn while I go to the gym.
That's funny. No, I don't know. There's like a concept of getting out of burnout, I think is a really tricky one, right? First, you got to
Mm,
recognize you're there. First,
true.
you got to recognize there has to be this moment of recognition where you're like, this isn't what I need. What
Mm,
I need is something different now. I think that's where we start to think of like ourselves as like that holistic wellness, because
mm,
you cannot have burnout without thinking about holistic wellness. Like there's
true.
no way to get away from it.
Yeah.
If you are in a burnt out state, the only way to get out of that is to make sure that you are giving your body and your brain and your emotions the things that it
Yeah.
needs to be full.
Exact, and environment too. Yeah,
Yeah.
environment and food and
Mhm.
your mental health,
You
your
betcha.
physical
You
health,
betcha.
like your sleep is important.
Yeah.
So we talked about exercise. What else
Yeah.
would you recommend for
Okay, so there's so much research out there right now because like we're trying to look at like what our days look like. We know that in some places you commute 2 hours. We
mm,
live in a beautiful place. Like
I
well,
walk 15
I
minutes.
could, and maybe I could crawl hands and knees all the way around Ukiah. It would take me a couple hours, right? Maybe an
Mm,
hour. I don't know.
mm,
Um,
sure.
so some people spend that time in their car one way.
Mm,
And then we think about how much sleep we get. And then we think about how much time we spend with our families and how much
mm,
time we spend with food and how much time we spend on being creative.
mm.
And then we start to look at, okay, if this is like holistically, like the whole thing, where are we allocating our time to? And what
Yes.
is the most important thing? So
Yeah.
I can't remember who the researcher was, but I can remember the statistic. It's like 42% of your day has to be for rest.
Mm.
So
And is this from the time you wake up?
in a 24-hour period,
Okay, sure.
so in a 24-hour period, 42% of that time needs to be rest. Doesn't need to be sleep. It needs to be
Just
rest.
downtime.
Your body in nature, see, back to nature, go
Mm,
sit out there and get in it, right?
mm,
So then if 42 is rest, that's like, like 10 hours of rest essentially.
mm.
So if you sleep for 7 hours a day, some people get by 4. So their rest cycle would look much differently.
Okay.
I like a nice 7 to 8 hours sleep.
Yeah,
So then I've only got 2 other hours to like play with in the day for just rest.
sure.
But have you thought about how much time you spend on food or how
Mm,
much time you spend on exercise? So we know 30 minutes is going to get rid of the stress. But what if
mhm.
your body needs 30 extra minutes, right? So then
Yeah.
you've allocated that. And then your time with like I think that everybody should spend 30 minutes on everything in a day, 30 minutes on your partner, 30 minutes on yourself, 30 minutes with your kids. Like to me
Mhm.
that seems like a great idea. I don't know if it's feasible for everyone.
I think, yeah, because everyone's schedule is different.
Yeah.
And I think that because something I found to be like I used to use the excuse I don't have time.
Oh, so you can't do that though, hey? There are
No,
24 usable hours in a day.
totally. And the
Yep.
thing is, I used to say, nope, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat this meal. I don't.
Mhm.
But the thing is, we have the same, like a number of hours every single day.
Mhm.
It's just our choice to where we want to allocate it.
Yep.
And it's okay to say, I'm choosing not to prioritize my family today because I want a me day.
Yeah,
And, or
very much so.
I want to schedule this amount of time to just like doing whatever I want to do.
Mm.
Maybe it's binge watching a show of Netflix, or maybe it's going on a trip because I've never been there,
Mhm.
or maybe it is prioritizing family
Yep.
and being with
Yep.
them,
And every
or
day can look a little different.
and every day
Yeah.
can look a little different. And I use my agenda a lot.
Ah, I've seen this.
Yes.
I love it. Color coded, people. Color coded.
It's, well, I also love pretty colors. So
Yeah, it's
it is,
beautiful. It's
it,
inspiring.
thank you. That's
You're
sweet of
welcome.
you. But agendas and being able to, because then I know if I at least prioritize, so I'm saying my family's my priority today.
Yep.
Like even for this past weekend, I chose not to do anything for podcasting.
Yep.
Even though up until now my weekend I do. But then I said,
Mm.
you know what? No, I'm gonna go take a trip to Victoria. I'm
Wonderful.
gonna go spend time with my family. And I felt so refreshed afterwards. And then I know that I can, like, there are some things that I wanted to make priority for this
Yeah.
week. So I'll just schedule in as I do.
Yeah.
But I knew that even like as the bakeries changed over a lot, that I felt exhausted by the end of the week. And it's because I chose to not prioritize my food. I
Mhm,
didn't go to the
mhm.
gym,
Yeah.
and I wasn't meditating as often.
There you go.
And but it was clarity. And I knew that when I prioritize me and all the things I know I know that they're essential needs for me, but it only came with time and well, practice
Mhm.
and a lot of experience to know what is a necessity for me
Yes.
and what is not.
Well, wellness isn't a state of being. It's a state of action. Like you
Totally.
have to take action to be well.
Exactly.
It cannot be something that you just think is going to happen.
Yes, I'm
So it's
going to
not going to
think about eating
magically
healthy
appear.
food and then I'm healthy.
Yeah, no, no, no. It's not like it's like that pixie dust, right? It's not going to happen that way. You actually have to put action into it to
Totally.
create wellness for yourself.
Exactly.
So,
And I think that sometimes it can feel overwhelming when
mhm.
you at least for myself, when I load a lot of things on. So sometimes it's nice to just chunk it and piece it
Yeah.
and then do it regularly.
Yes. Well, you need to build a habit. Habits are important, right? What,
Yeah,
21 days to break a habit and
sure.
6 months to build one, right? So,
Yeah, and then it becomes like an unconscious or
yeah.
subconscious just
Yeah.
like program, and then
Yeah.
it becomes so much easier. But I think that I know for a lot of people, when they're choosing to build better habits, that they can
Mhm.
fall off them right away.
It's the January 1st,
It's the
right?
January
It's
1st
New
all the
Year's
time.
resolution, right?
Yeah.
Like I set a resolution that I never kept, right? We do that though, but the things need to be small building blocks,
Yes, and
right?
then consistently,
Yeah.
and then if you write them down or I love sticky notes.
Yeah.
So if I say this is really, really important, Nikki, and then sometimes I'll forget, and then I'll see the sticky note, and I'm like, ah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
It's great. That reminder, right?
all the
But wouldn't it be
time.
nice if everybody had the reminder like, hey, today wake up and be well?
Mm.
Instead, most of the time people wake up and they're like, "Oh, my to-do list is huge and there's so much
Mm.
going on. And like, when am I going to eat? Who's taking the kids to school? Like, what is going like,
Yeah, yeah.
man. But that's how our lives are. And like COVID really shifted us too a
Especially,
lot.
yeah. It,
Working from home,
yeah,
your
yeah.
environment's totally different. Then all of a sudden you go back to work and you're with people and it's not comfortable. And like all of the change came in.
And we were talking about before how that period of I don't want to say stagnation because we were all very active, but I know COVID really did bring to light a lot of things that were important to us.
Yeah.
But also a lot of we were talking about in terms because of the nature of the topic burnout, that we realize that it really is something that is not necessarily just in our work environment.
No.
It's a state of being.
Yeah.
And it can happen anywhere at any
Yeah.
time consecutively as long as we're putting on that cap.
Yeah.
And so since like COVID has
Yeah.
been a thing,
Uh,
how have things changed in terms of our relationship to it?
ooh, I love your questions. You're good at this.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so if we think about like I'm coming from the perspective as a teacher because like that is my job, that is my career, that is my happy place.
Mm,
And so I think to myself, okay, burnout typically would happen, or at the beginning of the concept of burnout, we had it where when it was doctors and people that were staff
yeah.
people working with folks all the time. Teachers then fell into that group. But now we're looking at burnout and how it's even affecting people who work independently at home on a computer. So now all of a sudden, it's not just those that are in the public eye working with people every day. Burnout can happen when you're all by yourself too, right?
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, that also opens the door to like, let's actually talk about people that don't get an income from their job, but do a job
Mm,
every day. For example, primary caregivers.
yeah.
I'm sorry, any
Huge.
mom, dad, stepmom, anybody who's raising a child has
It's
a job. That is a job.
oh
That is a
yes,
task and an action that they are taking.
absolutely.
And you cannot tell me that after a million diapers or a million lunches or whatever the thing is, that you are not stressed out by it. And then all of a sudden you feel burnt right out. Right.
Totally.
So COVID's opened that door for us to look and see, like, okay, it's not just, mm, teachers or doctors anymore. Now it's like,
Mhm.
hey, guess what? This can happen everywhere.
It's
And
workload.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's consistent stress on yourself that is happening over time,
Mhm.
all the time, and you
Yeah.
can't get away from it.
It's a lot of I find that for myself, I know when I'm giving more than I feel like I'm receiving in
Yeah.
return. And I know especially for anyone doing care work or something where they're giving a lot of themselves, like teachers for sure, doctors for sure, nurses and carers for sure. And parents obviously, that when there's a lot of, you have to give so much of yourself mentally,
Yep.
physically, emotionally,
Emotionally,
there's a
all of it.
lot.
Yep.
But then it's oftentimes when there's not that like there's a lot of out but not enough in. And so especially with because I've never had a child, I've
Mhm.
never been in a care job like that. The
Yeah.
only thing I have that I can relate this to is well, like my baking job and also when I was in customer service.
Yes.
And so that was a lot of like emotional energy, physical energy out.
Out.
And then when I wasn't taking those steps to fill my own cup,
See,
um,
yeah, you got to fill your own bucket sometimes, man.
you,
If someone else
all
isn't
the
going to do it,
time,
fill your own,
all the
right?
time,
Great
absolutely.
kids book, by the way.
Which
Have you filled your bucket today or something? It's
oh,
yeah. I think the last name's Ludwig, the author, maybe, but it's cute.
have you filled your bucket
Yeah,
today? Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Or
no,
how to fill a bucket, how to fill a bucket.
sure,
I don't know what it's somewhere along those lines.
we'll
Great,
find it.
great story. Great
Yeah,
story. So then okay, so this is great. How are you gonna fill your bucket?
yeah,
That's when we come back to that, like, okay, you need to allocate certain times and certain things so that you're not burnt out. Okay, so you're gonna exercise a little bit.
yes.
What are the other wellness factors?
Going to the spa.
Oh God, I love that. That's a great one.
Yes,
That's a great one. So is that like emotional and mental?
I
That's like
would.
that
It
meant
is
like yeah, right.
huge.
Okay, so there we
Yeah,
go. Okay, so what are okay, so
spending time with my friends.
ooh, I like that one too.
Yeah, because then
A
I feel
connection, right? Also
connection.
mental and emotional though. That's an emotional connection.
Yeah,
Yeah. So okay, so that filled your bucket.
it does fill my
Physical
bucket.
activity.
Meditation for sure. When
Okay.
I don't meditate, I definitely notice my train of thought
Mhm.
is very much like it's not present. It's always on what is there to do next? I have to do this.
Scattered about.
It's very scattered.
Yeah.
But when I find that I take even 5 minutes, so I've done it, so I'll take 30 minutes in the morning, I'll take 15 minutes at my lunch break, and then before bed I'll take another 30 because
Beautiful.
it's because I personally I'm choosing not to allocate like a couple hours a day just straight up
Right.
to that. But those times where I can break up my day, it feels like a brand new day for
Mhm.
me because I know that I can come back to myself.
Yes.
I can check in and be like, in this moment, I'm
Mhm.
safe.
Mhm.
I'm safe
Mhm.
and I'm loved and I'm
Mhm.
peaceful.
It's not beautiful.
It is. It's
That's so wonderful.
I didn't used to. I used to be the person who would work 12 hours with no break.
Oh yes, you got to feel you have to take care of yourself.
And that's when I burnt out the
See,
most.
there you go. See, so it can happen before anyone notices too, right?
Totally.
Like I didn't think I was burnt out,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden I was, and it was like,
Where did this come
this is
from?
not okay.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah. And the thing
So
is, I know some people when they take time for themselves,
feel
the
selfish,
feels
but
so
it's selfish. It's
it's
selfless.
yes, you
It's
know
not
where I was
selfish.
going for yeah.
We were talking about this, weren't we? Because like, oh, I need a break. I need to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait a second, that was all about me. And like,
Yeah.
oh, but you know what? It is not selfish.
No, because then you can actually give more. If
Mhm.
you're, especially when you're giving back to yourself,
Yes.
what I like to say is you're not taking from your cup, you're taking from your overflow.
Oh,
It's like your cup
nice.
is always full,
Yeah.
and then you have a saucer underneath you,
That's your
and
little,
that's where you give to everyone else.
yeah.
But if your cup is full first, you feel full, you feel energized and
Mhm,
happy
mhm.
and vibrant,
Right.
full of vitality
Love
and
it.
prosperous.
I love it.
But if you're taking from your cup and then your cup is empty, you can't even give to anyone else.
Mhm.
And then there becomes that guilt
Yep.
that I'm not
Shame,
doing
blame.
enough.
Oh,
All of it.
man, have you okay, Brene Brown, have you read any?
Love Brene
Okay, so
Brown.
right, just
Yeah.
like straight to shame, blame, and guilt, man. Shame, blame, and guilt. Like, yes, we hold it. We are human giver syndrome people where
Mm.
we feel we gotta give, 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 and then shame, blame, and guilt ourselves out of it.
For not doing enough.
My God,
Even
hey?
though if we were to like screenshot or like capture every single moment where we've given our like self to other people, because we give of ourselves every day for work. Sure,
Yep.
there's like we feel like there's adequate compensation in terms of like if
course,
we
yes.
want money,
Yep.
but there's also like we do it for the love and the passion,
job,
like for
too.
exactly. So there has to be something that has to come back to us. And I know that for something I talked about with some of my friends who also are parents,
Mhm.
that they felt this guilt
Yep.
for taking time away from being with their children
Children.
because they felt as though they needed to be there the entire time. But then when they weren't taking the time for themselves, they couldn't give their 100% to their children. And then they felt equally as guilty because then they didn't feel like they were truly present. And so it actually is such a huge thing.
Cyclical, isn't it?
It is cyclical, but like
yeah.
no matter what, it's like you can choose to do it and feel amazing for yourself,
Mhm.
knowing that you're not only are you giving back to yourself because you're your number one, and it is okay to say that the other person can be your number one after.
Yeah, okay,
You.
so I don't know if it was me and you that were talking about or if it was me and somebody else, but okay. So when you're on an airplane and they do
It was
the
us.
service announcement, right?
Yes.
And the guy, if the plane's going down, the air mask's gonna come
Yeah.
down and they say, put your mask on
Yeah.
before you put, it
Yes,
was you?
It was us.
So true, because if you are not breathing, how are you ever gonna help anyone?
You're gonna
Which
be
makes it
passed out.
sound so silly in my head the first time I heard something like, no, save the children, right? Children and women first, right? Titanic all over again. But then like, if you are not breathing, you cannot help anyone. If you are
Totally.
not whole, you cannot supply wholeness to anybody else.
Exactly.
If you are burnt out, there's no way.
Yeah.
Right?
So it really is important, especially for those who love being givers. I know for myself, I love being a care person. I love being able to be like, how can I help you today?
Yes,
How can I
yes.
serve? Where can I
Servitude
give?
is great, right? That concept of servitude, right?
Exactly.
And
But it's you got to serve yourself.
self, yes.
Yeah.
Well, of course. Okay, so I want to go back to your mindfulness because in my work of what I've been doing, because I love this self-study that I've been on, because like I realized I was burnt out and then I had to get out of it. Yay! Big mountain to climb.
Well, you didn't have to. You chose to.
Okay, right. Okay, yes, I really needed to.
Yeah,
It
because
was
you
like a
love
priority
yourself.
for myself, right?
Exactly.
So I had to make choices and had to make decisions on what I was going to do to then make myself whole. So you said mindfulness, and I think to myself, like, mindfulness and yoga and that practice, yoga more physical, mindfulness is, or meditation. I said mindfulness and I meditation.
Sure,
Also,
but, well,
mindfulness is as well, right? They
sure.
fit in the same category.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've been struggling with where I wanted to put that in my categories because I have categories when it comes to my wellness.
Ah, I love that. What are your categories?
I'll tell you all of them. So there's physical, environmental, financial, occupational, intellectual, emotional, mental, social. And the last one is where I've started to put mindfulness and meditation.
Sure.
And I labeled it as spiritual.
Yeah.
Because I was raised in a church, so I have some sort of spiritual background, but I also really love nature and I understand the spirit of the land. And then also like spiritual can just be like your own personal belief, right? You don't have to follow some guidelines. Spirituality can come from anywhere. So I think that's where that like mindfulness and meditation is fitting for me, is in that category.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there 8. Hey, you nailed it.
Yeah.
You said that you forgot, but
That's
you remembered
okay.
them all
That's okay.
very clearly.
Well, there are some too that you might not even have to do, right? Like I was feeling burnt out in my job.
Okay.
Right. So occupationally, I needed to like remove myself, right?
Okay.
Right. Do something different with myself for a minute. And then there's that intellectual one, like
that was one that was I understood most of the other ones, but intellectual, do you mean like learning?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
like,
learning something new every day.
Yeah.
That's
it can also be
great.
creativity, right? Like that's where you would you know, like you're using your brain for something
It's like
other than
drawing
the
or
main,
painting or
other than the normal,
sculpting or
right?
okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it doesn't really
Uh,
matter what, as long as
uh
it feels
Well,
inspiring.
I think you're like the concept for me at least is that you're activating your brain, right? You're
Mm.
activating something inside your brain. Now, a really creative person, their brain is activated when they have their hands in clay, right? Like
Mm.
that's a good one for them. I like to read,
Ah,
right? I like
okay.
knowledge, right? I like to learn something.
Totally.
Fancy that I was doing my master's at the same time I was burning out. So intellectually, I was like, yeah,
Overloaded.
yeah. So I didn't need to like fix, like, that wasn't like my area of concern
Yeah.
because I was already like intellectually challenged, right? So,
Oh, I love this because part of me is well, like I have all these mental pictures going on,
yeah,
but I love that when you're feeling because some people maybe they need more intellectual
yeah.
stimulation because
But they didn't know it.
but they didn't know it
Yeah.
because maybe their way of downtime, and I'll use TV as
Mhm.
a another the
Peppa Pig didn't
scrolling.
activate their brain.
No, because it's a lot of mindless just, and that's
Yeah.
okay too.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
okay to just turn your
Yeah.
brain off, but sometimes it's like maybe it's nice to like pick up something that like a
Yeah.
book that you've never read, or maybe it's drawing just for the sake of
Yeah.
be like creating,
Yeah.
or maybe it's building a sandcastle.
Mhm.
Something
Mhm.
that you're using different mental faculties,
Yep.
but it feels
Comfortable. Fun.
comfortable,
Yeah.
stimulating, but it's not necessarily in the other categories.
I'm loving a Sudoku for this. This is how that's how I'm like, I challenge myself with numbers.
Mhm. So when people are feeling burnout then maybe it's like where they can look to these different
Yep.
categories and like so what I like to talk about in my life coaching is anytime that we're looking for the moreness of life, where we look to our longing and our discontent.
Yeah.
So I think that for what I usually do is I look to my four quadrants is relationships, time and money, freedom,
Yep.
vocation,
Yep.
and what is the
Oh, see, this is that eighth thing and fourth thing. What's
sure,
the fourth?
yes.
It'll come to you.
It will. Either way, we look to these four quadrants,
Yeah.
and then where there's longing and discontent,
Hmm.
we're like, oh, I would really love this, or I really want this, or there's something that's calling to me. So in your eighth quadrant, maybe you're feeling overloaded in your area of like intellect
Yep.
because you're doing your master's, and
Finance.
maybe
Let's go finance. See,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
Like
and you're like, "Oh,
there's,
I feel like I would love to take care of this more."
yeah.
And there are different ways. At least if you're able to label it,
Hmm.
then you're able to make it more tangible.
Yes.
And then you're able to we'll use the word control because you're able to well, situate it in a way where you feel
You make choices to do
make
something
choices
about that,
and
right?
yeah, exactly. And I love that you have 8 categories.
Yeah, well, I really had to unpack my entire life, right? Like what was going on?
Mhm.
Was I eating enough? Was I sleeping enough? Was
Mm.
I giving enough time to my friends?
Mhm.
Was I challenging myself in my job?
Mm.
Like when you really have to unpack what's going on, and it's so scary. I was so scared at first, right? Like I'm in the state of burnout. I'm doing research on burnout. Everything seems like, how did I not know what was going on for myself? And then all of a
Mm.
sudden you start to unpack all of the things that you need, right?
Mm.
I need to make sure that my house is clean. If my
Mm.
environment's not clean, my brain is not clean. So, okay, so I need to take more care of my environment. Okay, I feel like I'm not getting enough time with my friends. Okay, there's social. I need to go and make the effort to do that.
Mm.
Whereas when I was in that state of burnout, I just felt so exhausted all the time. I didn't make the phone call to see my friends, right? And
Mm.
like, even when you're completely exhausted and just have nothing more to give, that phone call with a friend can actually
Uplift you.
rejuvenate a part of you, right? And so
Totally.
if you're thinking about all those factors and like how just like elevating one
Yes.
then elevates yourself, and then all of a sudden elevating two doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like calling a financial planner and like things are organized and you have enough money to go on vacation, and you were like, wow, I
Yeah.
was broke like I was broke, and now all of a sudden I'm there, and like
Yeah.
your life starts to look differently in ways that are important, right?
Yeah.
And I think with the hustle and bustle of the world and everything's changing in technology, and we got to do this and we have to do this and keep up to the Joneses and it must look like this,
Sure.
there's more opportunity to forget that you are at the center of this, right?
At every moment, it's a
Yeah.
choice,
Yeah.
and it's very empowering as well. And I love when you're saying that as soon as you pick one, the
Yeah.
others don't feel as bad.
No.
And then you're able to be like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, let's call a financial advisor. Let's
Yeah.
take care of me and my financial well-being. And then you're like, oh my goodness, now I have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I know that everything else, my bills are taken care of,
Yeah.
or my expenses. Now I have money. I was like,
Mhm.
I can go afford to like take a weekend vacation
Yeah.
or a month vacation. And then you're
That's
like,
true.
and it's like feels amazing, and you're like, I have something to look forward to.
Mhm.
And now, like, even with your space, I was talking with someone at work today. I was like, I love keeping up with the dishes,
Yeah.
or and even keeping my
Mhm.
home
Mhm.
cleanly,
Your
because
environment, that's your environment. It
it's
needs to.
huge.
Yeah.
Because I know that as soon, actually, I know when my mind is
Mhm.
cluttered, because my space
Space is
becomes
cluttered.
cluttered.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I take that time to sweep or
Mhm.
organize my shelves
Yeah.
or put away my laundry and all those, I'm like that's
Yeah.
like literally just like I feel this huge weight lifted off. And then it slowly, it's like if you take tiny chunks from what felt really,
Really
really
big.
big,
Yeah.
and then you feel like, okay,
That's not so
I
bad.
can control this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is okay. Okay, now this isn't as big
Yeah.
now. And it's
Most
slowly,
definitely.
it relieves so much of what is, again, perceived stress, but
Mhm.
it's still like it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
all of that is just like, if it means that you're happier in life, then it's worthy to take
Mhm.
that time to do your laundry,
Yes.
to call a friend,
Yeah.
to go for a walk,
Mm.
to have a salad or a cookie if you want a cookie. Like whatever it is that
Yes.
feels nourishing to your body in general. And again, it's not selfish, it's actually the least selfish thing that
Yeah.
you can do.
Selfless.
It is selfless
Yeah.
to take care of
Yeah.
you first.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And like I wish I could go back in time and have a conversation with myself when I now know is that where I was spiraling,
Sure.
because it would be interesting to talk to that person
Mm.
about intellectual things, or talk to them
Ah.
about their finances, or
Mm.
ask myself how my nutrition was.
What would you tell yourself?
Oh, what would you know, for you just have to like, what would I tell my last year? My previous self.
Mm.
First of all, it's going to be okay. Right?
Mm.
Because like I realized that when I was in that state, everything was wrong and it wasn't okay.
Mm.
So I'd tell myself it's okay.
Mm.
I would tell myself that the steps are easy to get through. I would tell myself that I deserve to do it. You
Mm.
know, like I don't know. Sometimes I think to myself like those positive mantras. Ugh, like whatever. But then I'm like, yes, okay, they work.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, here
I
we
love
go.
positive
Dream
mantras.
big, you're good enough, all those things. But it's so true, right? Like we are good enough. We can
Yeah.
get through it. It is just a moment in time. And what we do with the next actions. It's
Mhm.
not what we did. It's what are the actions we're going to do next, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think reminding myself that it's okay to also know that you're not okay, right?
Oh, that's
Like,
a big one.
it's
Yeah.
so huge because we all just want to pretend everything's fine.
Mhm. We were talking
We're
about
fine.
toxic positivity.
Positivity.
I still believe in
Ugh.
the power of positivity. However,
Mhm.
there's something to be said about
All the time.
neglecting. Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
just kind of something actually my life coach says, you're basically like blocking out. You're like, la la la, everything is great.
My
Like
bubble is beautiful.
everything is positive and everything is wonderful. But it's actually okay to say,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
okay. Where can I give back to myself? It's okay to say, I'm actually struggling. I need help. I need support.
God, those
It's
words.
okay to say that I'm actually feeling really sad right
Yeah.
now. I'm feeling really stressed right now. And I need to take a
Mhm.
break. I need to take a moment. And I know for myself, because, well, one thing that I get from everybody is, wow, Nikki, you're so happy, you're so positive. And the thing is, people don't see all the time about
Yeah.
in the behind the scenes
Yeah.
where I just let myself rip. I just I
Right. Yeah.
cry,
Yeah.
I scream, I
Mhm.
just like I say I'm not doing okay
Okay.
right
Yeah.
now. Like I put on too much on my plate. But then I used to not acknowledge it. I say, nope, you're fine, Nikki.
Yeah.
Just keep going. But I realized that all I did was shove it down. I
Yes.
literally, and
Just
that's,
like that stress factor, right? Just keep pushing it in there and do nothing about it.
yeah,
Do
and
nothing,
it's
right?
like you're holding a cork underneath the surface of
Yeah.
water,
And
but the
it just
thing
wants
is,
to climb up.
it will,
Mhm.
and the thing is, it feels so good when you just let it off.
Yeah.
Let it bubble to the surface whenever it needs.
Now, there are times that you're not
Yeah.
supposed to let it bubble to the surface, right?
There's
Like you're
safe
at your job, you're
spaces.
not supposed to like lose it and like swear all over the place and all that stuff and have a total negative
There
day.
can be,
But like,
more productive ways
wait,
of
yeah,
letting it out.
you got it.
Yes, and so, like, that's when I find, like, maybe in the middle of a work day, I'm like, "I'm actually feeling this is too much."
Mhm.
That's when I'll take my 15,
Yeah,
and
off you
that's when I'll
go.
go for a walk, that's when I'll sit in meditation, that's when I'll cry,
Yeah,
and I'm just
love it.
like, my day is just like, there's things that are going on that were different from yesterday,
Yeah.
that were different from last year,
Mhm.
that, like, today, right now, in this moment, I need to cry,
Yes.
I need to scream,
Yes.
I need to just leave,
Yes.
and it is really,
All for
really,
yourself because you know who you are. You
yes,
know what you need. You've already cycled through what you need
yes.
to be okay.
Exactly. But that is why I'm positive
Mhm.
the majority of the time is because I've allotted myself those very safe spaces, those very productive spaces for throwing myself a pity party.
Yeah, love those.
Love pity parties.
Yeah, everybody should
And
have one at least once a month.
yes, don't pitch a tent for too long.
I know.
But
Get in the hotel, have the pity party, and then get out again. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then afterwards, you're like, okay, I'm actually really, really
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And things from here on out are going to be amazing. What action step can I take to serve myself right now?
Mhm.
Whether it be, again, calling a friend, going for nature,
Yeah.
having a cry,
Yep.
eating something nutritious, having a little dance party in
Mhm.
the kitchen, or
Love it.
whatever it is. Whatever
Yes.
fills your cup in that moment, whatever feels good, is worthy and deserving of your time.
Big time. Yes,
Big
most
time,
definitely.
huge time.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Goodness, I'm still thinking about my previous self.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
okay.
that's a
But
big one.
the thing is, like, past Ivy,
Hmm.
or like, she got right here
Yeah.
to this spot by
So,
even doing, like, to learning about burnout. And the
mhm.
thing is, like, when you were saying before that you were on a completely different topic,
Yes,
but and you were saying
it's a
that you were
big
stressed
pivot.
out because there were circumstances that led you to have to switch topics,
Yes.
and you were not okay with that.
No
And
way.
I'm sure that it was very stressful because you're like, what am I gonna do? There's a time crunch.
Like
But
panic. I can just like it's
yeah,
funny because in most of my I journal a lot. So in my books, it's like I have one page that says
love journaling.
panic right on the top of it, right? Like just go straight to panic, start thinking about what your intense moral purpose is,
Mm,
and just get your way down this rabbit hole, right?
yes.
And then pivot and
When you're going
realize
through hell, keep going. Because
you
if you
betcha.
stop, you're still in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then you make that big shift, that big pivot, and then I realized that that pivot was so monumental for me
Mm,
and has changed so much for me. So in my journey, my personal journey,
yeah.
right? Massage,
Mm,
acupuncture,
love.
naturopath,
Love.
counselor,
Mm,
by the way.
double love.
Like I think we should I'm sorry, I think every human being twice a year should speak to a counselor.
Mm.
And I think 90% of us should speak to one once a month,
Yeah, to
right?
having someone safe, knowledgeable that
Yep.
you can just let it out with.
And then they are not related to you in any way. They are not going
Yeah.
to show up at your house. They are not going to do anything, but they can also say, stop it. Stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is not healthy for you.
Yeah.
This needs to change in this way. And they're not afraid to say that. If you're doing something that is detrimental to yourself or somebody else,
Yeah.
a counselor has the ability to say, wait a second, let's go back and really unpack this and think about it and
Yeah.
be there for you.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
Trained
yeah,
professionals.
love them. So also psychologists, great people as well.
Yes.
Making a regular doctor's appointment, huge, huge.
Totally.
Taking time for exercise, making sure I was with my friends, journaling all the time,
Mm.
trapping myself in music.
Oh,
Big fan, huge fan. I know you sing all the time at the shop.
I do
I
love
love it.
singing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, so having music, I often find that I get out of my head
Mm.
and I can be more present in the world that's going on, right? So,
And I love that you do that. So I like that you give yourself space to be out of your
yep,
head, i.e., getting trapped in your music,
yep.
as you say. But then you also mentioned journaling. I love
Yes.
doing that because I find journaling to be very therapeutic. And I know there's a lot of research on the mind body connection.
You
But
can
then
go back and see themes, that thread that runs through, right?
exactly. And then writing it down helps make it more tangible, more manageable. And then also helps with really just, again, getting it out, feeling it through. Sometimes I know that my theme in the past was a lot of scribbling, a lot of crying, a lot of just like high intensity emotions.
Yeah.
And then there are some days where I'm like, I would love to channel this more in a way of like positivity and uplifting, where I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for this.
Right.
I'm so proud of me for this. And really being able to mind body connection, not just saying it, but like feeling it, writing it down.
Yes. So then you get to go back and you also get to see that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you were struggling at this time. You go back, you see that, you could see that you said you were proud of yourself. You could go
Yeah.
back and you could see that, like, um, you were in a negative space. And what did you do with that negative space? And you can look at the next day and the next day and the next day.
Yes.
And you can see the things that you do. As I look back, I'll go and color code and highlight things. If I see a theme running through, right? Like if I've spent too much time on somebody and consistently I was saying that, I wish I was receiving more from them, then all of a sudden I've noticed that it's consistent. I'm like, okay, now I can do something with that.
Yeah.
Again, it's action, right? Wellness is not a state of being, it's a state of action.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that you go back and you highlight.
Yeah.
I love that you, because I personally don't go back in my journal. I have them and I keep them for when I love.
Yeah.
But then I love to just feel like I'm starting new all the time.
Right.
But I love the idea of implementing places and spaces where you can go back and check in with yourself and
Or
like,
star the ones you want your future self to read,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
because maybe there's one that you write in there that is like that positive moment
Yeah.
where you were saying you're grateful and these are the things you're grateful for. And you star that when you come back to it and you're like, I was really grateful for those things.
Mm.
And now I'm grateful for these things.
Yeah.
And this is your theme, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
I love that very
Mhm.
much. So, what would the version of you that you already know is the principal, that is this leader, what would they be telling you? Like, because they're already living that life. The Ivy in like, we'll call it future
Yep.
Ivy, maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
Sure.
Sure. She's already doing this. She is a leader. She's already enacted these certain principles.
Yep.
She's already starting to do these like
I've done the work on myself. Now I'm in that position.
so what do you think that she would be telling current Ivy, and what next steps would she be taking in terms of implementing these for the current generation right now and also the people that you're working closely with?
So as that leader, after this research, knowing that burnout is massive, it causes absenteeism, it causes people to take time off, it causes interpersonal relationships to fail, it causes it is detrimental to someone when we're hitting burnout. So as a leader,
and to herself.
yeah, it's craziness.
It's all well-rounded.
Yes, but when as a leader, first and foremost, like checking in on our people, making sure that we have connections with our people. Right?
You have asking them like, how you doing
Yeah,
today?
like I know that it seems like easy for our bosses or our leaders to come around and just say, "How are you?"
But a
But how
genuine
often does it happen? How
conversation.
often does it happen?
What
Right?
it-
In a bigger place,
yeah.
like imagine a staff of 60 people.
Yeah.
How does that look? Right? What does a check-in look like? Is a check-in just a waste of words or space because it was just, "Hey, how are you?" Or was that check-in an actual moment in time where they made a connection with you and could realize that something was missing?
Yes.
Right? So I think also to myself, like teachers don't, we snack, we don't eat. Sometimes our lunches come home with us. Like the photocopier is our best friend at lunchtime. How many times you're like trying to shove a sandwich in and like hit the photocopier because you only have this many minutes and you missed your prep this week because the other teacher was sick and wasn't feeling well, and all of this is going on. So you're standing in front of that photocopier and there's one more person and you're shoving your sandwich in and you're good to go. And then you look over and that person hasn't eaten a thing. And did you offer them that other half a sandwich? Right. So as a leader, I want to make sure that I'm looking at those little things to make sure that my staff is okay. Why am I not having like at the beginning of a staff meeting, a meditation? Why am I not supplying a yoga teacher to come in every Wednesday for wellness? Right?
Yeah.
Why am I not asking them if they've had a massage this month? Because their benefits package allows them to have one massage a month. Have I asked them if they've had a massage? I'm going to call and book my appointment. Why don't I just book those too? Right? We're all going to go to the same masseuse, essentially. Most of us do. I know most of my staff at the elementary school here do. So if I'm making that appointment, why don't I just make everybody's and we'll just like pick the day. And as the leader, I'll come and cover your class and you can go and come back when you're done and you're a little bit better off.
Mm.
Right?
I think because when you're saying that at the level of fact,
Yeah.
there's time that the teachers are choosing not to take to supply nourishment for
Well,
themselves.
it works that way.
Sure.
Right.
But that's also, I know that it's the same thing as what we were talking about before when I used to make the excuse that I didn't have
Enough
time.
time. Yeah.
But the thing is, there's always enough time.
Yeah.
And I know that teachers it's the workload, it's the student load,
Class size.
it's
Yeah.
the class size,
Position.
and it's also maybe like the scheduled work day.
Yeah.
But this is all something that has been pre-scheduled into the teacher curriculum.
Yeah.
But what if there was moments where they're like, actually, this is time dedicated to the teachers, like students, like go off to your own thing.
Yeah.
Like, how can I support
As the
you
leader,
with-"
I'm going to take both of these classes. You guys go
Yeah.
and go for a walk together.
Yeah.
Have a moment.
But even then, like everyone's their own leader and
Yes.
everyone can be a leader
Yes.
for each other. And so even right now, when circumstances, yes, this is the current culture, teacher culture.
Yeah.
So they're saying that they're dedicating sometimes, like they're supposed to get a lunch break, but then they often dedicate it to helping other students with extra time because they need it, because they love it, or maybe they just feel like they need it because they want to help support them, but then they're neglecting themselves.
It takes away from themselves.
It takes away from themselves. And so it's also like the duty on the whole like teacher culture to say like we need to do something to be able to give back to ourselves, to make that present and known for the higher ups, but also within themselves, as well as it's also, I believe that everyone's own individual like part,
it's a right to ourselves that we
right
need
to yourself.
Yeah,
and
we need to
for every teacher to do what they know is best for them, but also be able to help promote something that is like, it's not going to happen all at once.
Well, again, that's that boundary thing, right?
It's the boundary thing.
So
but it's
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's I think because again, like I was only ever a student. I haven't been a teacher before, so I can only like guess what it's like to be in that culture. But coming from the teacher's point of view, and for someone who would like to step into a higher leadership role, and who's also studying burnout, who is not only navigating what it means to be a teacher right now, but who also has aspirations for being able to command like a higher population of teachers and say, how can we make it work for us? And how can we make it better for the students? Because not only are we giving again back to ourselves, but we're also even can give back more to the students,
right?
But they can also be leaders of saying, actually, I love you. I want to give even more time for you. But right now I'm feeling like I need to give time to myself so I can give even more to you. Like, what would be what would that maybe like look like in even just like, because like
it's going to be different for everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's going to be
every
different.
Culture is different.
I can smash half a sandwich 2 seconds before the bell and be okay with it. Some people need to eat 30 minutes before the bell so they digest. It's going to look different.
Sure,
right? But setting those boundaries and saying that you need to put yourself first. Like I know when I do go back into a school, I need to set boundaries and say like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I need to go to the staff room and eat.
Yes.
That is my need. But I also know that there are going to be weeks that doesn't happen, but then I'm going to have to come home and fill my bucket a different way. Whereas before I was just like, what happened before was we just work, think it's okay and everything's okay. And then we come home and do everything that's okay. No. Sometimes we have to stop and say, this day did this to me. What action am I going to take next? Did something stress me out? Do I need to go for a run or a walk or a dance? Did I not eat enough food? Am I eating 2 dinners tonight because I didn't have lunch? What does my nutrition look like? We have to make sure that there's a balance. Now it's not perfect, right? Every day can't be perfect.
It's
I think impossible.
that the idea of perfection is always well, one, I feel like perfection is unattainable, but also perfection looks different.
Yes.
So I think something can look quote unquote perfect,
Perfect.
but it looks different every day.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, maybe today I chose not to eat, but I am going to make sure that I am like snacking regularly.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe I chose to actually today, I wanted to take my full 30 minutes. I'm not going to see any students. I'm not going to do anything else. That's for me, but that's today.
Today. Yeah.
And so every day, I think it's being able to have, what I like to do is I like to have priorities. And then on any given day, as long as I've hit these priorities, then I know that I've successfully, like even today, I went to the gym, but it was only for 15 minutes. But for
Yeah.
me, I was like, went to the gym, check.
Right.
And I was like, I would love to have a meditation. And over the weekend, when I was with my family, I was like, okay, it's only going to be for 10 minutes because
You had something else you were
exactly.
prioritizing something else. Yes.
But I
Very much.
still did it and I said check.
Check.
So it doesn't matter what. And I think it's also celebrating when you do and not taking it for granted.
Yes.
That's why I love doing my gratitudes and I love doing my proud ofs, because when I say I am believably proud of myself that I took this time to meditate for 10 minutes
10 minutes. Yeah.
when I could have chosen to not at all. But I know that this is something that fills my cup and I did that for me. And so like maybe for teachers, maybe it's I chose to spend 5 of my 30 with myself,
Yeah.
eating just for
Just
myself.
for myself.
And I dedicated the rest of it
It's
to
all about
helping.
you.
It is.
Right? It's all, yeah, it's funny because
it's all about you.
I'm going back to my music thing because there's a song called All About You by Classified, and
Yes.
it runs through my head all the time. It is all about us sometimes. We have to put ourselves first.
We're
Number one.
Everyone's our own number one.
Yeah.
Because if we know, I love saying this, if we all know that we're each other's number one, that we fill our own cup first.
Yes.
And we're just like, go me, I'm the best. But now, go everyone, we're the best.
Yeah.
We're filling our own cups. And now we know that we're all 100% in this collective group. I'm not trying to take on your workload. You're not trying to take on my workload. Yeah. Because we know that we're doing it for ourselves.
So it's so nice to think that like everybody can get there too, but sometimes it takes that absolute fall, that absolute smush to make sure that you're recognizing your things, right? So like moving forward as whoever I might become.
Sure.
And being a leader, although I guess leadership is everywhere, but when I think of like leadership, I always go to that school concept. If I can even help make sure that someone is well, holistically well, in an environment like that with all of those staff members, and they elevate themselves for 1 minute, and then all of a sudden that just keeps going around and around and around and around, that community's built, that culture's built, that ideal that you matter is built, and that you come first is built, right?
Yeah.
Like you can tell that you can see it on people's face if they don't feel well. Take that next step. You don't feel well, go home, I got you.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
you need something here. Let me help. I got you, right?
Yeah.
It's important to do that for myself, for others, and like what goes around comes around, which seems really ridiculous to say,
but it does.
But it does. And not letting people suffer in silence, sharing experiences, talking, actively listening, being an actual part of a community and culture where belonging and like desire and knowledge and all that stuff come together. It's work. You have to work to do that. It doesn't magically appear. Everybody's not magically attuned to each other and friends. You actually have to like put in time and effort so that collective is whole. You have to put in time and effort so your collective is whole, but you also have to do that with the relationships and people around you.
Exactly.
So
And I love that because it is like you are a true leader in your community, and I love that you actually want to support people. But the thing is, like, you started this work for a reason. I believe that you were gifted with this like idea to start like this.
So funny, hey?
Because we're having this conversation now, and I believe that's a really important topic because being able to give back to ourselves and just being able, because now you recognize, now you're able to support either in, can I offer you an apple? Can I help relieve something? But the thing is, the only reason you can offer that is because you're already filling your own cup. If you didn't recognize, if you didn't care about yourself enough, you wouldn't have the energy to help other people. When you're showing up as the person, you become that leader. And as soon as when they're saying, oh my gosh, like Ivy, like you're seeming like even more vibrant
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Or like, wow, Ivy, you are just like, you're rocking it. You still have the same workload, maybe even more, but you seem so full of vitality.
Mhm.
Like, what is your secret? What are you doing? And the thing is, you don't need to like force anything on other people. The more you show up as that person,
Yeah.
the people find
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The people look to you. You become the
It's
example, not,
infectious.
yeah, and
It
it's
can be
not for other people, it's for
for
you.
you. Yeah.
But the community that you support, when people are able to say, I'm actually like, they become vulnerable and they feel safe in this vulnerability and say, I'm actually not okay today.
Yeah.
And you're like, amazing. Thanks so much for sharing.
What do we
How
need
can
next? Where are we going?
where
Yeah.
can we go from here?
Yeah.
Where can we as a
Yes.
collective, because we're all supporting each other, that like, where can we go from here? Because you're not alone. Yeah. And I love that you're just even starting down this where you can offer that to others, that we can have a honestly, conversation is
Huge.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if no one
It's how we
talked
grow. We
about
grow that
it,
way.
yeah, then we wouldn't be able to go forth from it. Yeah. And then if we're able to perpetuate different patterns of, you actually don't have to scarf down a sandwich at the photocopy machine. Like, you can actually take more time for yourself and it can look different. Maybe not all at once,
Hmm.
but action steps breed more action steps,
Yes.
which breed more action steps.
And again, action or wellness is not a state of being, it's a state of action.
State of
We
action.
gotta take those action moments.
Exactly.
It's cool work.
Yeah. So going forward, knowing that this has been well, continuous journey anyways, because I think that as we're checking in with ourselves, like as we're living,
Mhm.
we're always going to experience things that overwhelm us, that overload us, and that that challenge us. And that when we're checking in with ourselves and creating boundaries, like for yourself, knowing what you know now and knowing that, like, past Ivy,
Yes.
she experienced certain amount of stress and she showed up in a certain way, but now that you know this and you can your signs and signals,
Yep.
some steps that you can
You
take
need to
in
have some
order.
strategies. Yeah, gotta have those
Exactly.
strategies.
So going forwards with this research, is it something like, how do you want to continue on this journey?
Whew. Okay, well, one, I want to make sure that I am still like doing all the things
For
because
sure.
like it's just, you can't just toss them away.
All the things, meaning exercise.
Yeah, making sure that I'm sleeping and
Yes.
financially and like all those 8 things, right? I
Things.
loved my connection with Mass Latch. So now I'm like, I'm reading her next book, which is all on burnout too. And I'm looking at articles that she's posting and like,
And she also does podcasts.
yeah, she's one of those too. It's great. She's lovely. She's the guru and she's been doing it for so long. So I don't think I'll ever move away from like that learning about it. I may take my learning in a different way.
Sure.
Right? Like maybe I'm going to focus more on, instead of that research topic of burnout, I might really spiral or pivot or however we're going to look at it more into like other ways that my wellness can be built. Right?
I love that. Just developing different practices that help with your overall and holistic sense of like
self, yeah, and wellness.
well-being.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
it. I haven't painted in a long time, and I know I need to be more creative.
Yeah.
So maybe that box will come out of the closet.
Yeah.
I don't know. My research could also go more towards like looking towards the child's perspective, and maybe investigating, maybe going down the rabbit hole of like where the age limit of burnout starting. Like when is it? What is the transition in ourselves where we start to take on more stress and therefore feel it more regularly, therefore get to that point where it's been over time long enough that you could be burnt out, right? I think there's an avenue to go that way. Am I also going to like talk about these things more often with my students? You betcha. And so that's like research giving back.
And then you can arm students with knowledge.
Yeah.
Be like, just even being able to check in, say like, they can ask themselves,
self-regulation, man. Are you breathing today? Like what's going on? Yeah.
Like, how are you doing? Like, do you need to take a 15-minute? Like,
Yeah.
have you eaten? Are you well? Have you like hung out with your friends?
See, it's funny because you sound just like a teacher, but then I also think we sound like teachers. Like, have you eaten? How was your sleep? How are you feeling today? But when was the last time any of those teachers checked in on themselves?
We need to be teachers and parents back to ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like it's strange. It's funny. This has activated my thinking, like how many times I've said that over the course of 12 years. So many times. Like, are you okay? Do you need a snack? Do you need to take a minute to calm down? Have you breathed? Like it's all,
Yeah.
and then I also think in that exact same moment when I've said that to somebody that I'm like, I need food. I need to breathe. Like that. I want to like, wait, I didn't even ask myself that again. Back to put the mask on yourself in a plane. Put
Yeah.
yourself
But
first.
you're thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Actually gotten into this practice more regularly when I ask, I call her little me and I say, hi, little me, like, how are you doing today? And this voice pops up in my head where it's like, I'm actually feeling a little stressed out right
Right.
now. And it's like, okay, well, like, what can I do to like help just like make things more fun? I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
Right.
I would love to make something with sprinkles today. I'm just like,
Yes.
it's like having more, because the thing is, you can come at it mindfulness and wellness from perspective of I need to do this, I need to do this, and then I'll be happy.
Mm,
Or it can be, what can I do today to just have fun?
yeah.
Like, how can I be like, okay, I'm
What's
like,
the one thing today?
yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, like I would love to dance today. I would love to feel so vibrant and alive today. I'm like, what would I love to eat? Ooh, I would really love to eat this. This would sound like so much fun. Like I haven't eaten like a slice of watermelon and I love watermelon
Right.
so much. And it's like, okay, little me, like what would you love to eat today? Like, are you feeling okay? Like little me, do you want to like have a nap? And I'm
Check
like,
in with
yeah,
yourself.
like I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little tired right now. I think I just like I want a nap. And
Mhm.
it's like it really is like sometimes it's just it's being
You need to
okay
listen to yourself.
and having fun with it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I used to say, okay, now I'm going to meditate. Now I'm
Ah,
going to
yeah.
go to the
It's
gym.
8 o'clock. What am I supposed to be doing?
Yes. But
Yes.
then that felt very like I was an adulting trying to like be a child, but it
Right.
didn't really
Yes.
work. It's like
Program
both.
in fun. No.
Yes, we're not computers, we're
No.
people, and
Yeah.
we're the accumulation and compounded us over the lifespan of how we've been living. And part of that is our little selves.
Mhm.
Part of that is also our current adult selves.
Yes.
Part of that is also our adolescent, like just like angsty teen selves, that there's so much that has happened in our life
Lives. Yeah.
that like we're just like we're continuing to operate with these like previously conceived mindsets and now we're reprogramming
Mhm.
and that's going to take work and rigor,
Yeah.
but again it's just like where the well-being is action,
Mhm.
not just
Yeah.
a state
It's
of
not a
mind.
state of being, it's a state of action.
Yes.
But the thing, okay, it's funny because as you're talking, and I love that you're activating my thoughts as well. I know that there's many people out there and many generations of people that would say burnout is not a thing,
Oh.
right? You're just not, you pull your socks up, you got this,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not a thing. And the more I think about, like, as we're talking and as I've done and as I've
Mhm.
gone, it is a thing. It
Totally.
cannot be ignored.
Well, it can. I
Mhm.
think
Oh,
that anything can be ignored. It's a choice. It's a choice to
yes.
recognize when something feels good and when something doesn't. It's a choice to want to do something for yourself.
Mhm.
It's a choice to put in those action steps and recognize for yourself. You don't have to do any of this. It is like I didn't have to choose. I didn't
Yeah.
have to get up at 4 a.m.
Yep.
to meditate. I didn't have to spend the time after work to go to the gym. I didn't have to take time to eat nutritiously. This was all a choice.
Yes.
And it's because I love myself.
Well,
And this is love back to myself. And this is because I don't really feel like experiencing burnout. I
no.
don't feel like stressing out over a job. Like I chose
Can you
not to.
imagine
Yeah.
choosing to be tired and emotionally exhausted or like not feel good enough about yourself when you could just choose to maybe get up at 4 and meditate and
It
make
doesn't have
better
to be just at
choices?
4, but
Well,
that's
whatever it
when
is,
you
right?
choose
Like
the
your
schedule.
choices
Yes.
to do, and like I don't know anybody that wakes up in the morning and they're like, I'm choosing to be miserable today.
Well, I think some people recognize that they may be under the impression that they don't have a choice.
Choice, right?
And I
Okay,
think
I like
because
this.
society is also like a lot of us look to our outside world to dictate how we should show up. And so if the
Ooh, that's
culture
big.
or environment says you need to wake up early or you need to wake up late, you need to do this because say if all of the other teachers were just scarfing down food and
Mhm.
you were the only one
I'm
that
sitting
took
at the
your
table.
because the thing is we don't want to look like outcasts
Right.
We want to know that we're part of the group. And
Yep.
there's a lot to unpack there, but I think that when we know that we can be the change, like I know the huge thing, we are the change.
We are, yes.
But it's when you have to be okay with yourself knowing that you're giving back. And that's a whole other thing. But I think that knowing that everything's a choice.
Yes.
That going to work is a choice.
Mhm.
Go to whatever profession you choose is your choice. It's a choice to meditate. It's a choice to eat or not to eat.
Mhm.
It is a choice to breathe or not to breathe. Well,
Well,
sometimes
no,
it's a choice not to breathe,
breathing is
but
one that's in there. It's inherently in us. We don't choose that.
well,
Mm.
there's
Breathe deeply, maybe.
sure, but I also know that sometimes I hold my breath and it's a choice to like,
Mhm. Yes.
or it's a choice to take time and just choose to breathe and to not think about anything else but my
Mhm.
breathing.
Yes.
So everything's a choice, and it's also a choice to think that you're burnt out or not.
Mhm.
It's like everything, and that's
Yeah.
where the empowerment comes back into, because when you arm yourselves with knowledge, resources, and tools,
Mhm.
and you choose to act on them, then that's when change happens.
That's when the magic happens.
That's when the magic
And
happens.
it's so fun.
Yeah.
That magic is fun. My life feels completely, well, it's not completely different.
Yeah.
I feel completely different.
Yeah.
I go about things much differently. I'm sure
Totally.
there's still going to be stress out there. Like, bring on the stress. It's going to happen. We cannot, it's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah, it's
Can
part
I
of
handle my
growth.
stress a little bit more?
Of course you
You
can.
betcha. I'm arming myself with all of these other tools and strategies and skills.
Yes.
So that when those bumps come up, they're not mountains. They're just bumps.
They're just bumps.
Yeah, and like we have those. Everybody has those.
Totally. It's part of the fun of life.
It's true.
I think
The game of life, right?
the
There's little mountains on that game, right? There's a spin and like you're going all over it. Those bumps happen, right?
Yes.
Now you're divorced. Now you're, I don't know what the else otherwise.
Children.
Is that what's on those cards?
Dogs.
Oh yeah, you
I
picked
haven't
a
played
wrong
life in a long
career. I
time.
don't know.
Sure.
I don't, yeah. But
yeah.
I don't know, arming myself with the skills and strategies. Maybe I'll share a few of those skills and strategies with people at some point.
I think that the natural conversation comes up, but I think it's nice. So, like, as we're ending the podcast and takeaways, what would you love to leave people with in terms of burnout, in terms of taking care of themselves, in terms of being leaders not only for themselves but their community and wellness in general?
The takeaway, what's the big takeaway?
Well, whatever comes to mind.
It's so strange because I am going to come back to that concept of like putting yourself first.
Putting yourself
You
first.
need to make sure that you are
your number one.
Yeah, you say this and it's true. Without making sure that you're okay, you can't do anything for anyone else.
Yeah.
And taking the time to recognize where you need some help or where you need to work or where you don't, or what avenues you need to take to build yourself so that you're not crumbling or you're not in a position of uncomfortableness or stressed out, and really saying to yourself, like, this is who I am inherently. I'm good enough, but what do I still need to do to make sure that I'm whole? What do I still need to do to make sure that I am on a path where I don't burn out in the future? Or maybe change my path because I am burnt out.
Yeah.
And it all really comes down to like putting yourself first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
You're
selfish,
amazing.
man. Selfless, not selfish.
You are so amazing.
Well, thank you for having me on this. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful. I think that you're such a light in this world. I think that this journey that you're on is really, really valuable. And I appreciate the fact that you're doing this. I appreciate the fact that we're able to like spread more knowledge, because I think that it starts with knowledge, and then like the desire to want to put something into action. And then it's just consistent tiny baby steps towards a bright future that we're all deserving of.
So true. You're so kind. Your words are so kind.
You're lovely.
And I'm so happy that you allowed me to be part of this, because I like that fact that like we talked about intellectual, and like this is like sparking something in myself. It's a different platform, different medium. We all should try something new once in a while.
Absolutely.
So like you're doing this whole thing, and
it is very
and
new.
when I first looked at like I had to come with an like I am finishing my master's right now. So there are some things that I need to be doing. And the minute I saw this project that I had, this culminating project, it was so quick for my brain to think of you and your podcast, because of the information I've seen and listened and like who you are and who you are in my life. I was like, I want to have that conversation with
Mm,
someone in this way,
mm,
to do it this so I can show what I know and also put it out there
mm,
because I could have wrote a paper. I could have
mm.
just typed it all up and put it out there in academia in like some other format.
Yeah.
But this way, what we're doing is, like you said, reaching somebody else and going deeper than just ourselves.
Yes. Doing something new,
So cool.
being
Love
a
it.
part of the love and life and challenges and new experiences of life.
Yes.
You're lovely.
Thank
Thank you.
you. This has been a blast. Thanks for tuning
Yeah,
in.
thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining me today because it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about today's content and any inspirational words of wisdom you'd love to share. I'd also love if you would leave a 5-star review on whatever platform it is you're listening to this on, because it helps in creating even more awesome content. May your day be filled with only love and light, and I look forward to talking with you all real soon.